Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and we are now going to discuss the Imola Grand Prix which just happened, or the San Marino Grand Prix, whatever. The third Grand Prix to take place in Italy this year, which is fine. And honestly, this was much more palatable than the Portuguese Grand Prix, which I didn't do a video about because frankly it was so boring. I didn't really have anything to say about it, so I skipped it and talked about IndyCar instead, about 4 days late. But I have watched the San Marino Grand Prix, so we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I just want to thank you for helping me reach 100 subscribers. Now's a good time to subscribe because next week there's going to be a video every day, all fairly special. They're all sort of things I've been planning since the start of the channel and just haven't got round to yet. So every day of the week, next week, new video. So stick around and thank you. And sit back, relax, and let's begin. So, whilst this race was more entertaining, that doesn't mean there's necessarily a lot that went on. It was pretty much the standard Formula 1 race. It was more palatable, as I said. It wasn't exactly 10 out of 10 excitement. But a lot of the things you expected to happen, happened. So, there's that. I actually missed the first 4 laps, so I don't know how Hamilton went down to third behind Verstappen. I don't know what happened to Lance Stroll. And, you know, I only caught the replay of Magnussen and Vettel getting together and Magnussen spinning. That's when I tuned in. So I did miss the start, but it doesn't matter. This was a pretty easy race again for Mercedes, especially as Bottas was damaged as well. So it looked like Verstappen was going to have second place after he got past Bottas, which he did a good job doing that. But it was really easy for Hamilton after the first pit stops, with Bottas hobbled and, you know, every car in the grid being hobbled compared to the Mercedes. There's not really anyone to contest with him, so it was another pretty meaningless win. I'm pretty sure I'll go onto the news websites in a minute and I'll say Hamilton in best drive ever, because they always do, which is weird because it actually makes it less special when he does do a really good job. And he did. He was quick when he needed to be, and it was fairly simple for him. Bottas damage to his car, probably did well just to survive. It looked like he went off a couple of times. He probably did okay. It's fine. Verstappen unlucky again with tyre letting go. No points for Red Bull because Albon spun at the end as well. So not a good weekend for them. It proves how far behind they really are and how hard they have to push to even be on a competitive level. Verstappen really is my driver of the year just because he can hang with the Mercedes to a point. There's just a point where as much as he can give, it's just not enough. But to even be close to him at any point in the year, really, that is more impressive than winning the championship, because you expect Mercedes to win a championship. You don't really expect anyone to keep near them, and Verstappen does on occasion. But I think he pushes the car too hard, and things like this are bound to happen. It's not been a great year for him, really, and he's pretty much stuck in third. So he's my driver of the year, but it's a sad state of Formula 1 where no matter how hard you try, you're going to lose to Mercedes. Everyone else in the grid, Ricciardo's doing a great job, another podium for him. It's interesting to see how Renault have got on this year and how they've improved and where that means they'll be next year as Alpine. With Fernando Alonso as well, when you're not sure how quickly he's going to get used to the cars again, because it's been a few years. I'm sure there's going to be time needed to get back into the action. As good as Alonso is, it's just normal for human beings. You saw when Michael Schumacher came back with Mercedes, for example, that it's not necessarily easy to take a few years off and then jump straight back in. But McLaren, I think they've struggled to keep up the development a little bit. They sort of dropped back from Renault and Racing Point. Again, it'll be interesting to see where they are next year with Mercedes power and Ricciardo and Norris behind the wheel. I think they've got a good future. I think they're going to have a good couple of years. Racing Point, Perez did a good job. It was a mistake with the pit stops, but I don't think it really matters to them. It's more points. Stroll, I don't know what happened to him, so I don't know if it was his fault or not, but this is what, 5-6 races in a row where he's not scored since his podium at Monza. It's a big shame because he was 4th in the championship. He was having a great year. I would completely change my mind about him. But now he's sort of dropping back down the field and not scoring points. story of two halves. I mean, hopefully he'll score some more points before the end of the season. I think he's only got like 4 races left. And again, it'll be interesting as Aston Martin, because they haven't announced Stroll yet. And I'm sure they will. But it makes you wonder why they're taking so long to do it. I mean, they've pretty much announced Perez will not be racing for the team. So unless they get Hulkenberg back, I can't see why they do that with Lance Stroll's dad running the company. But it'll be interesting to see how he gets on next year with Vettel as his teammate. Because I think, based on this year's performance, Lance Stroll could beat Vettel. Because once again, Vettel did not score points. He didn't really even look to be challenging for points. He went long on his tyres, got up to 4th, and he's doing an okay job. Bad pit stop through it all the way. That can't be helped, but he didn't do anything from 13th on new tyres, so that pretty much sums up Vettel's year. Leclerc, another great drive, being up there. Unlucky at the end on old tyres, lost out to Kvyat. But, I mean, he's 5th in the championship, which is definitely not where Ferrari are. So, again, Leclerc is another driver doing a very good job this year. AlphaTauri, Gasly was doing a great job all weekend. 4th in qualifying is amazing. And he was quick all weekend. He deserved to be there. I think it was a coolant leak that ended his race. That is a huge shame because, I mean, he would have been above Kvyat. So you could say 3rd, 4th were on the cards for him today. Didn't happen for him. It's kind of a shame, but Gasly's done a great job. And I'm not surprised AlphaTauri have kept him. But given Albon's constant mistakes, he made that one today, I can't see why Gasly isn't being moved back up to Red Bull. Apparently he's fallen out with Helmut Marko. But if it's just a case of a personal reason to keep him down a little bit, that's not good enough. He's doing a great job for AlphaTauri. It's worth giving him another chance in the Red Bull, surely. I'm not saying get rid of Albon entirely. If you're intent on bringing Yuki Tsunoda up, have Albon and Tsunoda at AlphaTauri. Daniel Kvyat did a great job again today. He came 4th. And that, again, that wasn't just luck, being in the right place at the right time. He was in the top 10 most of the race, pretty much all of it. Yeah, he was fine. Daniel Kvyat can do a job. He makes mistakes every now and again, but he can, on his day, do a job. It'd be a shame to lose him, but I'm pretty sure that's the route we're going down. And if he can have a good end of the year, it's a good way to sign off his Formula 1 career, which has been very up and down. But that seems to be the way they're going. I think it will be... Will they keep Albon at Red Bull next year? That's the biggest question on the grid right now, because Gasly's confirmed, and it's all but confirmed that Yuki Tsunoda will be at AlphaTauri. And you can kind of guess where Haas are going. We'll get to Haas in a minute. Alfa Romeo have confirmed, Williams have confirmed. There's not many seats left, so that Red Bull seat is interesting. And Albon could do with a good end of the year just to secure a drive. But if they are set on replacing him, it's a case of who are they replacing him with. Again, there's not many choices on the grid. Is it Perez and Hulkenberg? That's pretty much it. Because Grosjean and Magnussen may be flying around, but I don't think Red Bull would touch them. And they don't have the sponsorship to buy a seat, so it's a hard one for Red Bull. For me, I mean, I can't see why you wouldn't have Verstappen, Gasly, Albon and Tsunoda. I think that's a fairly decent driver lineup. And if the seat comes available again, you can give Albon another chance, or just do what you did with Daniel Kvyat and keep him in that AlphaTauri Toro Rosso seat. So that's the real main story going into the end of the year, is what Red Bull will do for 2021. Not many teams left. Alfa Romeo, both drivers did a good job today. Both scored points. Both been confirmed for next year, which surprised me. I thought they were the one team that would change completely, because Raikkonen, I can't see why Raikkonen wants to continue, other than he seems to enjoy it, I guess. Giovinazzi has made so many mistakes, but he's doing better this year than he was last year, so I guess it's reasonable to give him another chance. Maybe they'll just give it till the new regulations change. We'll see. Haas, pretty much the same thing you get from Haas every weekend. Magnussen spun, ruined his race, eventually retired. Grosjean was somewhere in the field. I don't think I saw him all race. Both of them are leaving. Mick Schumacher to Haas. Mick Schumacher's done a really good job in Formula 2 this year. I'm pretty sure he's going to win it, because he's been very consistent. But I think moving it up to Haas is a dangerous idea, just because that car doesn't look good. It's not been good all year. It's probably been about on terms with the Williams all year. And it's a hard car to score points in. So it'll be interesting to see what Mick Schumacher does at Haas, but I should imagine he'll only be there a couple of years before moving up to Ferrari anyway, which I think is dangerous for Carlos Sainz, because I'm sure they want Mick Schumacher in that Ferrari. As for Nikita Mazepin, I mean, apparently he has a very good sponsorship package to bring, and money is good for Haas, I suppose. It'll help their development, I guess. All I've ever seen of Nikita Mazepin is a very average Formula 2 driver. He is capable, but I don't think he's anything amazing. There's a lot of really good drivers in Formula 2, but if you're just going to choose someone because of a sponsorship package, then I guess Nikita Mazepin is fine. I don't think he's bad. I just don't. He's nothing special. It's sort of the biggest problem with Formula 1 is that, yes, it's a money sport and big sponsorship packages matter, but you have drivers like Luca Giotto and I mean people like Norman Nato and Jordan King all fell through the cracks. They're all really good drivers who could have probably done something in Formula 1, but because you haven't got smaller teams up there anymore, or there's just so few seats available, a lot of drivers just seem to end up going nowhere with their careers, and it's kind of sad. But that's always kind of been the case. I mean, not so much in the 80s and 90s when there were so many Formula 1 teams on the grid. There was like 30 teams or whatever. There wasn't. It was like 15, 16. And you're right, you'd have pre-qualifying, so not all of them would make it to race day. In fact, most of them wouldn't, the smaller teams. But it gave drivers a chance to be in Formula 1. And it's kind of a shame that you can spend your first 10 or so years in motorsport, going up from karting, the junior formula, and make it through Formula 3 and Formula 2 doing well, only to not have a Formula 1 drive available for you at the end of it because there aren't enough teams on the grid, or no one's changing seats this year, so you'll have to just go sideways into something else. Like De Vries, who's had to go to Formula E. Now he's with Mercedes, he's in a good place in that series, but he's never really going to get a chance in Formula 1 unless something amazing happens. Maybe Mercedes decide that, seeing as Hamilton and Bottas have pretty much secured their positions in the championship, let's just switch Van Dorn and De Vries in to give them a chance to win a Formula 1 race. Why not? It'd be a bit of fun. Someone else might win then, and it'll be very, very exciting. They're not going to do it. Williams is the last team. Russell, oh, he's unlucky. I mean, it's his fault. He crashed under the safety car. And to make matters worse, Latifi finished 11th, so Latifi is almost guaranteed to be not last in the championship at Russell's expense. But both drivers confirmed for next year. They're both really good drivers. So I think Williams can be fairly happy with their performance today, despite the crash. I think the silly season is almost over because there aren't many seats left. I mean, Hamilton hasn't been confirmed at Mercedes, but he will be. They will pay any money to get him, which I'm sure is the main talking point. As for everyone else, as I said, the Red Bull seat, I'm sure the AlphaTauri seat will be confirmed. Yuki Tsunoda. It seems fairly well, I'd say mostly set that Mick Schumacher and Nikita Mazepin will be at Haas, which is fine. They'll do okay. Probably do better than Grosjean and Magnussen, honestly. And Williams have confirmed, so that's it. That's all. I mean, look, again, Lance Stroll will probably be confirmed at Aston Martin at some point. There isn't really much more to say about this year because there is nothing to really, no stakes left in the series. Hamilton is basically confirmed first, as he was in Australia before it got cancelled. Bottas is pretty much set for second now. Verstappen will be third. The best battle in the field is for fourth because it's quite close between Ricciardo, Leclerc and Perez. I don't think Sainz, Norris and Stroll are that far behind, and they're quite close to each other. So, we're watching the midfield to see where they will end up. Third in the manufacturers, fourth in the drivers. It's not the best, it's not the biggest stakes in the world, is it? But that's how Formula 1 is nowadays, and people love it. They love watching Lewis Hamilton win every year with about 4 races left, meaning that there's nothing really to watch for the last 4 races. And I'm sure at Turkey, Hamilton will be confirmed champion. So I'll leave you with that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for 100 subscribers. And I'll see you next week. Have a good one. Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And this is my review of the Imola Grand Prix. And I'd start by saying that this was a really good, entertaining race. And I think Imola deserves to be on the Formula 1 calendar for the foreseeable future, because the racing here tends to always be exciting. If you remember back to 2006, we had Schumacher versus Alonso. We had loads of stuff happen this year. It's a great track. Much better than Sakir. It would have been a much better season opener at Imola than we had at Bahrain. I know if you read a lot of the media, they said the Bahrain Grand Prix was thrilling. I had comments on my Bahrain review saying that it was a great race and I was wrong. I disagree heartily. I think one of the comments I got said that there was crashes in a safety car and Verstappen chasing down Hamilton, and it was very exciting, but that means you liked the first lap and the last 5. So 6 laps out of 56. That doesn't make an exciting race to me. As I said in the review, it's an intriguing race watching Verstappen and Hamilton get so close to each other, which we didn't necessarily get at Imola. But it wasn't a great race at Bahrain. This was much, much better. You have to remember that media has to build these things up because it has to sound exciting, because they need to sell adverts and stuff to get you to click on their website. And when in actuality, that was not a thrilling race. That was an okay race. But we had lots of stuff at Imola happen, so we'll go through all the major talking points, and you should leave your thoughts in the comments below, and remember to subscribe. So with that, let's begin. We'll start with the fight at the front, I think. Now, Hamilton got pole, but it wasn't a massive difference to Verstappen and Perez. And Perez on the front row as well, which was really exciting. I think it dispels this Red Bull have gained a massive amount on Mercedes and they're way in front now, though, because at best I would say they're evenly matched. The Mercedes still looks a bit faster overall, at least in the hands of Lewis Hamilton. Probably not in the hands of Valtteri Bottas, who seems to be struggling a little bit. But I think it's pretty close at the front. I think there isn't really a team with an advantage. It may change track to track, but Red Bull and Mercedes look fairly level pegging at this point. And it was a fantastic start from Verstappen that really got him in the power position. He bolted off the line. Hamilton, he made his choice to go around the outside. It was never really on. And Verstappen got through fairly this time rather than in Bahrain. So that was the early part of the race, was Hamilton chasing Verstappen. And it was starting to look like the race was going Hamilton's way when he was closing in. Verstappen made the choice to go to dry tyres first. That cost Hamilton because he got stuck in traffic. And then Hamilton made a mistake, which is rare. We don't really see Lewis Hamilton make mistakes very often. And it was his mistake. Again, commentators tried to see if they could blame George Russell for it, and it wasn't really on. It was Hamilton was trying to lap Russell, got onto the wet stuff, lost control, into the barrier. This is the thing with Lewis Hamilton. He is incredibly lucky. Anyone else would have hit the barrier and been out of the race. He just taps the barrier. And it's not driver skill, it's just jammy luck that he didn't hit it full on and he was able to get out of the gravel trap. So he reversed out of the gravel trap, which was cool to see, actually. You don't really see Formula 1 cars reverse up very often. And then we had the massive accident with Bottas and Russell, which we'll talk about in a minute. And that brought out the red flags. That allowed Hamilton to unlap himself. That put him in a position to charge through the field to get back up to second. Which is probably... It was entertaining watching him climb through the field, but DRS is still too powerful. I don't like DRS. I've never been a DRS fan. I don't like it in any form of motorsport. I don't like it in Formula 2, although it does tend to cause a bit more chaos there. I don't like it in DTM, where it has made the racing really, really boring. It's a really... Because, you know, Hamilton was getting past people before the corner, and you really want to see two cars go into the corner at the same time. Or him pull off a jammy overtake around the outside. If he's already passed, it's not... Apart from the one on Sainz was okay, but Leclerc and Norris he got fairly easily in the end after chasing him down. So the pace in the Mercedes is still good. Bottas, he seemed to be struggling a bit this weekend. He qualified in 8th. Didn't really seem to have any pace at all this weekend. He was stuck in that midfield. He could not get past Lance Stroll. It took him a while to get past Gasly, whose tyres were fading. And then he got caught up with Russell in a massive accident, took them both out of the race. I don't think it's anyone's fault. I think Russell was going for a move and Bottas just happened to put his car to the right and Russell went on the grass and he got tangled up. It was just a messy racing incident. So I wouldn't apportion blame for that one. But it was a big crash. I'm hoping they're both alright. I think both got checked out. They're both fine. That brought out the red flags. But this was not a good weekend for Bottas. It's not really been a good start to the year, because even though he finished third in Bahrain, he was some way off Hamilton and Verstappen. He doesn't really look like he's in the title fight, and it doesn't even really look like he's going to be able to back Hamilton up. He's really falling into that Albon position of just being too far behind to be helpful. Perez, on the other hand, when he's up there, he's really good. He did look good at times this weekend, but he has made a lot of mistakes. Firstly, spinning off behind the yellow car, behind the safety car, and then getting the places back when you're not supposed to. And then he spun again towards the end as well. No points for Perez. It's not really good enough, but obviously it's going to take time for him to get used to the car as well. But when he was up in second and up in fourth, it looks like he could be a useful driver to Red Bull as long as he can stay there. Maybe the track conditions just didn't suit his driving style, and we'll see something better out of Perez. He did a great job to get on the front row, so he's already much better than Alexander Albon was last year. So it's been a positive step for Red Bull, not just in terms of development, but the drivers they have now. They are going to be a real threat all year, as long as they can keep it up. That's what makes this title exciting, where others haven't been. But we said this about Ferrari in 2018, where it looked like they'd clawed the gap up, but in reality they hadn't. They'd made sacrifices, and Vettel was far exceeding the car in 2018. If you look at where he was to Raikkonen at the first half of the year, he was so far ahead of his teammate, whereas if you look at it the second half of the year, Raikkonen had closed back up. But it's different. Verstappen will probably be ahead of Perez in the races, especially most of the year. Perez might get him in qualifying like he did in Imola, but it's going to be I think Perez is probably the perfect backup driver to Verstappen. I want Perez to take a win or two, because I think he deserves more than just the one win in his career, and this is the perfect opportunity to get it for as long as he gets it, because there's some good drivers in the Red Bull program, and that seat is not safe forever. Going through the rest of the field, as I said, I think Verstappen was a top class driver today. He made mistakes. Behind the safety car, he went onto the grass, but he got it back. Won comfortably in the end, 20 seconds in hand. He didn't really make any mistakes. He's 1 point behind Hamilton in the championship because Hamilton got fastest lap this time, but it's very, very close, and that's good for the sport. Mercedes, they're still probably the team to beat. Hamilton's still the driver to beat, but him making mistakes, maybe that shows the pressure's on. Again, that's good, keeps it exciting. Going down the field, McLaren looked really on the pace. Lando Norris looked incredible in qualifying. It's a shame he had that time deleted, but obviously he ran rides somewhere and track limits, whatever. But he really, really did a fantastic job this weekend. No mistakes, right up there. Brilliant, brilliant drive from Lando Norris. He's my driver of the day. I think it was Yuki Tsunoda last week or Sergio Perez, and this week it is Lando Norris. Daniel Ricciardo was there as well. He got points, and that's more than what you can ask for him. McLaren are probably the third best team this year. They seem to have the legs on Ferrari just about. It's close in the races, but both teams have good drivers. Ferrari, double points scoring finish in Imola. They'll be happy with that. Fourth and fifth. I mean, they've been happy with a podium, especially at Imola when it's so close to their factory, but compared to last year, they're doing fantastic. So Ferrari, they're right back on it. I think give them another couple of years. Hopefully Carlos Sainz is still in the seat, because I'm sure they want to get Mick Schumacher up there as quick as possible, but I'm hoping Sainz stays long enough that Ferrari can be competitive and he can take a win or two somewhere. Leclerc, I think he's probably in the top 5 best drivers on the grid. Fantastic young talent. He's going to have a bright future, and I'm sure he'll be with Ferrari a long time. Who else? Who would be next, I suppose? Aston Martin. Stroll did a good job. He held up Bottas most of the race. Lower points positions, but that's probably where they are right now. Vettel, it was better than last week, but obviously he started in a pit lane because of mistakes, and it's still not the Vettel of old, and he hasn't scored any points yet, and he had to retire at the end of the race as well. They seem to have issues with that car. But it wasn't a bad race from Vettel. It just wasn't anything special. He almost survived. That's what you can say about Sebastian Vettel. It's good if he almost survives, which is how far his stock has fallen. Alfa Romeo, Raikkonen got points, which they'll be happy with. Giovinazzi had to have a pit stop late on for, it looked like a brake cooling issue. They took something off the brakes anyway. And Giovinazzi's not made any mistakes this year, and has sort of kept quiet. You don't really see him come up very often, but he could have got points this week, and it didn't happen for him, which is a shame. Raikkonen as well, he's always going to be a consistent, competent driver. He got points. It's a good job from Alfa Romeo. AlphaTauri, Gasly did a fantastic job to work his way back up after his wet tyre escapades. I don't know why they kept him on wet tyres so long, because he struggled and he dropped right down the back of the field. So it was a waste of time. Tsunoda, he looked good again. He actually overtook Hamilton, but then spun, which was a shame. I'm sure Hamilton would have got back past him anyway, but it was a good performance. And, it's a shame he hasn't scored points again, and he made a mistake as well. But the crash in qualifying really set his weekend back, because he had to start last. And he did a good job to get up into that sort of 9th place until the red flag, and then that little spin. But otherwise, it was a good job. He looks like a good driver, and I'm sure he's going to score more points throughout the year. I don't have too many worries about Yuki Tsunoda. But we'll go Alpine. Nothing special. Ocon and Alonso were down the back of the field. I think Ocon got a point. I can't actually remember. They look like they're struggling. They're sort of around the Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri fight, but they're not looking like the Renault of last year when Daniel Ricciardo was pushing regularly for top 5 finishes, which is a shame because Alonso is back and we're all supposed to be very happy about it. And Ocon was a good driver, but it just doesn't seem to be working for Alpine at the moment. Williams, a very disappointing weekend for Williams. Kurt Russell. George Russell, it was a great performance in qualifying to get 12th. Crash with Bottas. It was a shame because it ruined any chance of points, and there was a chance this weekend. He was in 9th, 10th at that point. If not for that crash, he may have pushed for... who knows what would have happened. He would have been ahead of Hamilton, because Hamilton would have been a lap down. He could have finished at least 8th or 9th, get his first Williams points. As it is, didn't happen. He crashed. But Williams seemed to be much better. They're in a much better place than they were. And this was a fantastic weekend for Russell, apart from the accident. Latifi, it was a mess. Again, a great performance in qualifying. I think that shows that Williams have made a jump up. But it was his mistake. He spun, got back on the track, and crossed over Mazepin. It was a bad move. He ended up in the wall. It was another big accident and ruined his weekend, because up to that point, he had been a pretty good driver. It's probably the best we've seen from both Williams drivers, except the outcome, which is obviously 2 accidents and 2 retirements. It's a shame because they really do look like a team on the move. So hopefully we'll see Williams points at some point this year. A team I'm not hopeful of scoring points is Haas. Both drivers made mistakes. We saw Mazepin spin again. Mick Schumacher behind the safety car spun and took off his front wing. They don't have any pace. They're the backmarker team this year. Shame because they have... Mick Schumacher deserves better. And I think they really should have held out for an Alfa Romeo seat for him. Nikita Mazepin, it's not working. Because it's not that he was even close. He wasn't even close to Mick Schumacher. He got tangled with Latifi, I know, as well. That wasn't his fault. It was an accident. But he is so far below the level you would expect a Formula 1 driver to be at. I'd be surprised if he sees out the year. If he carries on like this, he's going to be... it depends on the money. Obviously, they're getting a lot of money from their sponsor, who's Russian. But race performances, it's not exactly value for money. Because, he finished, but he's not even close to his teammate. So it's not good news. If they're not going to score points anyway, what harm does it do? Fine, but it's a waste of a race seat. Pietro Fittipaldi would be doing a lot better. He'd be closer to Mick Schumacher at least. Maybe ahead of him because he's a little bit more experienced. As it is, Haas, it's going to be a no point scoring season for them because it just looks terrible. So anyway, as it stands, we have Hamilton leading the championship from Verstappen. it looks like it's going to be an exciting season. This is going to be tit for tat all year, which is great. Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc, third and fourth. It's a good year for McLaren and Ferrari. They look like the next best teams, but they have some very young, talented drivers for them. It's going to be an interesting battle. Once again, we are probably going to be focusing on the third place in the Constructors come season end, because I'm not sure Red Bull are going to keep this up. I think Mercedes tend to have better reliability than Red Bull, and I think that's going to really hurt Verstappen later in the year. And so, yeah, McLaren versus Ferrari for third is also a very interesting fight. Seems very even between them. Lando Norris, as I said, I think is my driver of the day, with Max Verstappen closely second. Hamilton making mistakes. It's unusual. We don't see it very often, and we'll see how it's going to affect the rest of the year. But with that, I'll leave you. 2 weeks' time, we're in Portugal, in Portimao. Again, it's not one of my favourite tracks. I've seen that track a lot in, I think, World Touring Cars used to race at Portimao. They might still do. I can't remember. It's not one of my favourite tracks, again, but it's something different. So I'll see you in a... Well, I'll probably see you before then, because I make videos throughout the week for which you should subscribe and constantly comment on and say whatever. But next F1 review will be in a couple of weeks. I will probably do a general roundup of all the other action from this weekend on Tuesday, because we have IndyCar in Alabama. We've got Supercars, and I've watched the first race of that. Shane Van Gisbergen did continue his streak. Best driver of 2021. Go watch that video. And I don't know what's on next week. We might have rallying. Possibly Formula E. I can't remember. But yeah, so this was a better Grand Prix. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe and have a good one. Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport. And just a couple of days after I said I was really excited for the Imola Grand Prix, it has been cancelled because there has been an extraordinary amount of rainfall and there are lives lost, and it's all pretty tragic and terrifying. And I wish the people of San Marino all the best, and hopefully they can get their lives back on track as soon as possible. But for Formula One, I don't think this is a terrible idea. I think cancelling the Grand Prix was the right thing to do, and actually 100% necessary, because the paddock was flooded anyway. So I think the Formula 1 paddock was alright, but it's where the Formula 2 and Formula 3 cars go. Apparently that was like knee deep in water, so it wasn't really possible anyway. And we have so many races on the calendar, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't replace it. I don't think it's necessary. I know they made a big deal about this being the biggest Formula 1 calendar ever, but the majority of people that I've seen, like the YouTubers I watch and people who've left comments on my videos, you know, the general feeling is there's too many races anyway. So we're back down to 22. And of course this is the second Grand Prix that's been cancelled this year already, because China was cancelled because of their COVID lockdowns. But I mean, it's a shame to lose Imola. It's a fantastic track. It has a great history in Formula 1, but as needs must. And I think this proves without a doubt that if there is a God, he is a Ferrari fan, because obviously he didn't want to see Charles Leclerc spin in Italy in a Ferrari, and so bit of rain, get it cancelled, we can all move on. There was some doubts about Monaco going ahead, which is next week, because they've got to move everything from Imola and all the trouble we're going to have doing that and get it across to Monaco. But as far as I'm aware, they have said the Monaco Grand Prix is going ahead at the moment, unless something changes. So we have that to look forward to. And I guess no, it's not really the end of the world to lose one Grand Prix. As I said, there's so many races this year, it's probably not a bad thing anyway. But I think we're shooting off to Monaco next week. I hope there's some effort to put some money together from the FIA, the drivers, the teams, whoever, to help people in Imola. I think it's an important place for Formula One, and not just because of the Grand Prix that goes on there, but the AlphaTauri factory's near there. The Ferrari factory's not that far away. It's really in the heartland of Formula One and motorsport in general. So hopefully it honours that history and it does something. I'm not quite sure what yet. I did have some ideas for racing. Formula One cars generally don't do too well on water, so I thought, well, I had an idea and I'd like to show you that idea. Right, so I'm going to need a few things for this. This will do. Slowly cut around the lilo. I never actually had one of these as a kid. I've never been in a giant inflatable tyre in a body of water. How shocking is that? I'm just going to try and stick it around a Red Bull. Not entirely sure how. This is going to take some working out, I think. We don't need this middle bit. There we go. There we go. Nice big hole for the Formula One car to fit inside the giant inflatable tyre. This will of course give it buoyancy. This is important. Yeah, I'm just going to stick Max Verstappen in his car, of course. He's looking pretty pleased with himself. Move these out of the way. Go on, there we go. Yeah, make him a bit smaller. Actually make him fit. There we go. Yeah, just somewhere on top. I think it's important he can see what he's doing. And, you know, put the lilo back. Well, he needs some way to steer. Just give him some oars. There we go. Yeah, that's looking pretty stunning, if I say so myself. Just move that. There we go, look, he's on the Thames. Perfect. Look at that. You would watch this. Just watch. He's getting closer. He's getting closer. I don't know why he's got an engine. He's got oars. He's making the noises as he goes along. There you go. He's off the screen. Tell me you wouldn't watch 20 of those going down the Thames. But the race being cancelled wasn't the only controversy to come out of this. Karun Chandhok, who is one of the few people I think is actually quite likeable on the Formula One commentary team, or the Sky Sports punditry team, whatever you want to call it, he has sort of shot himself in the foot. Because the drivers, they got a weekend off. They've made their plans. I think, as far as I'm aware, Max Verstappen is racing in an esport event, so he'll probably get angry, shout at someone and quit. Lewis Hamilton he's having a party in London with, I don't know if it's Justin Bieber's wife or sister or something, but I'm sure it was something Bieber. They're launching a perfume brand or a clothing brand, so Lewis Hamilton's going to the launch of that. They're strange lives these people lead. But Karun Chandhok was asked, I think people are just like throwing an idea around on Twitter where they're going to replace the Formula One race with an esports race where all the drivers can take part, maybe a few guests to fill out the gaps. And they were hoping the Sky Sports pundits could do commentary. But Karun Chandhok decided to reply on Twitter that actually he'd rather spend it with his children. Whilst an honourable thing to say, I'm a father myself, I love my children, and I do everything I can to spend some time with them. Given that you're weighing it against a tragedy that has taken lives and people wanting to put a charity event together to raise money to help them, and you were going to be working this weekend anyway. It was probably not the best thing to say. If he just said, no, look, I've got other things to do. Like, if there's no Grand Prix, I've got other things to catch up on. That would have been fine. And if he apologised and said, I'll donate 50 quid to the cause, and I'm sure someone will do it. Like, you could choose any motorsport YouTuber and they'll do it. Like, 50 quid, I would do it. Like, I would do it for free, let's face it. I'm a whore, I don't mind. But like, you got like Jimmy Broadbent and Aidan Millwood and bigger YouTubers than me who I'm sure would jump at the chance to do commentary or even just racing it. So it's not that big of a deal to lose Karun Chandhok. Let's face it, he's not a bad commentator, but he's not the best ever. But not losing out on too much with Karun missing. But it was a bit of a heartless statement in a bad situation. It's not really his fault. I mean, I think he has every right to spend time with his children if he chooses to. It was just not the right reply to what was being asked. If he just said no thanks, it would have been better. And hopefully there's no real backlash to it. I think a bit of a telling off is the absolute level of what's needed. We don't need to cancel Karun Chandhok. But I think it does sort of show that we expect these people, these drivers, I guess they're celebrities in some way, to just give their time so willingly. And you know, it's easy to forget they have lives too. And I'm not really coming down in support of Karun or going against him. I just think he could have worded his reply better. But I think other than that, obviously the main thing is just hopefully people can get back to their lives, their normal daily lives, as quickly as possible, and Formula One moves on. The circus goes to Monaco, and you know, we'll have that procession. I love Monaco, but I don't love Formula One in Monaco. I'm sure the race will be dull as dishwater again, but it's Monaco, it is special, it is unique, so I think it does deserve to be on the calendar. So that's what we have to look forward to. But of course next week we have the Indy 500 as well. That's what's going to be my focus next week, because I'm loving IndyCar right now, and I'm going to be doing a load of IndyCar videos next week, which I'm looking forward to, and hopefully you will be too. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Leave your comments down below, let me know your thoughts, and have a good one. Hello and welcome to Frontrunner Motorsport, and a very late review of the Imola Grand Prix that was on yesterday. And I have to say again, as we start the European leg of the F1 calendar, the longest F1 calendar in Formula 1 history, this was a pretty decent race. It wasn't mind-blowingly good, but at least things were going on, and I did enjoy watching it, and I do love the Imola track. Obviously there was a lot of Senna tribute helmets and a lot of tributes to both Roland Ratzenberger and Ayrton Senna, who both passed away at Imola 30 years ago, and that was nice to see. It's good that Formula 1 remembers its history, its tragedies as well as its triumphs. But the racing in 2024, it was another domination by Max Verstappen, but Lando Norris over the last 3 races especially has been incredible, and it did look like another win was on the cards here. He made a couple of mistakes when closing in on Max in the last few laps, and that cost him any chance of trying to get the victory. Obviously if he had been able to get up close, we don't know what would have happened. Lando Norris is definitely the driver in form right now, and if he keeps it up, there's going to be more wins available this year, and that could put him in title contention. Max hasn't gotten away like he has in previous years, well, last year especially. He's had a retirement already at Australia due to mechanical failure, so it's not impossible for someone to keep pace with him, and at the moment McLaren look like the team who are most capable of doing it, and they are challenging Red Bull, because both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri are scoring very good points at every race. And we saw at this one, for the first time really this year, Sergio Perez really struggled, knocked out in Q2 and couldn't really make much progress through the race. He only finished 8th. So McLaren scored more points than Red Bull at this race, despite Max winning. Now Max looked like he was having issues, I'm not sure what they were. And obviously if he didn't have that, maybe he would have won this race easily. But it feels like in 2024 it's more difficult for him than it was in 2023, and that's a good thing. He's still dominating the racing, and that's because even as good as the Red Bull is, Max Verstappen is also really good. He's qualified on pole for every race this year. That's not just car performance, that's driver stability, like just the ability not to make a mistake at any point on a qualifying lap at any race so far. That is incredible. You can't deny that Max Verstappen really is, at the moment at least, a master of his craft. But Lando Norris has come a long way, and he really is putting forward the closest thing to a challenge Max Verstappen has had in the last couple of years. And I do feel bad for Sergio Perez, because I think he is being made to look really bad at the moment. But before this race, he hadn't finished outside the top 5. But this was a bit of a poor showing from him. And I've said it before in other videos, I can see him being replaced, at least at the end of the year. If he has a run of really bad results, then I think Red Bull would cut him mid-season. And I think the driver who would replace him right now is Yuki Tsunoda, because he is absolutely flying. Q3 again, and another point. Yes, it was only 10th, but he did what he needed to do, and it's about where the RB was. The 9 places in front of him are the 5 top teams. I hesitate to put Aston Martin in that position because they are drifting away a bit, but Lance Stroll did do a very good job to get 9th place in this race. But Yuki Tsunoda really this season has come on leaps and bounds, and again he's showing that he is in form. If Sergio Perez, Red Bull decide isn't doing the job, I think Yuki could step in and really be a top second driver. I wouldn't say he would challenge Max, especially not straight away, but about the level of second driver scoring decent points for Red Bull, securing the constructors. I think Yuki would do a very good job if they decide to get rid of Sergio Perez now. If they wait till the end of the season, it's a harder choice, because you could factor in Daniel Ricciardo's history with Red Bull, Liam Lawson's debut year, his few races that he got to do were really good. Maybe that warrants a turn at the Red Bull. We'll have to see what they think. We'll see how Sergio does throughout the year. We'll see if Max definitely stays on, because obviously Mercedes are still trying to chase him down. But I think Red Bull, at the moment at least, are in a good position in terms of driver choice. Ferrari it was a mediocre weekend really, because they had a massive update and it didn't really give them much. They were kind of in and around the McLaren, so it's not terrible. Leclerc did a pretty good job of clinging on to the front runners this race, and he has scored decent points this year. Carlos Sainz as well. When the Ferraris have both been there, they scored points every race, and I think Carlos Sainz and Leclerc have been in the top 5 at every race this year so far, which is pretty impressive for Ferrari. It shows that they have speed and reliability, 2 decent drivers, and they're scoring decent points. It keeps it a 3-horse race in terms of manufacturers. They are the top 3 teams, McLaren, Red Bull and Ferrari. So Ferrari have done a good job under Frederic Vasseur. They have improved. Their strategies are a lot better. Their reliability, at least this year, seems to be a lot better than it has been in the past. So it looks like Ferrari have also made leaps forward. And I think Red Bull should be worried about the pace of the other teams now, because they are definitely catching. Further back, Mercedes definitely still sort of stranded in that 4th place team spot. Russell and Hamilton had at least a smooth weekend. It was a very strange strategy to pit Russell, even though he got fastest lap. It did mean he finished behind Lewis. He was never going to catch him. So I'm not sure what the reason they did that was. Maybe Russell's tyres were just so bad that he actually wasn't going to make it to the end of the race. Maybe they're trying to prove a point if Russell was moaning about his tyres, that this is what happens if you pit. Maybe don't moan, the strategists have it in hand. I don't know, but it was very, very strange. Other drivers who did very well. Yuki Tsunoda we've talked about. Lance Stroll, decent enough job, even though Aston Martin are struggling a bit. Alonso had a dreadful weekend, crashed in one of the practice sessions, knocked out in Q3, qualified last, and was basically nowhere in the race. So this weekend can be wiped out of his mind because it was such a mess that it doesn't really count. And it doesn't help with the new upgrades they've brought as well, because obviously it's a bit of a anomaly in terms of the data they'll get from this one. But Lance Stroll did do a good job. He made up places. He went long on his opening stint and he made that work. Got 9th place, couple of points. Is about where Stroll is. Behind that, Haas had a fantastic weekend as well. Hulkenberg looked very, very quick. He missed out on points, which is a bit of a shame, but I think Haas will regret letting him go. And I say that despite saying they never should have signed him. In qualifying at least, he has been brilliant. And he has been consistent in races compared to Magnussen, who's a bit of a crash magnet this year. Or at least a controversy magnet. And he was poor here again, Magnussen. So again, another driver I think that is definitely going to be replaced by the end of the year. Obviously Hulkenberg is going to stake Sauber. But I think Magnussen is either at the end of his Formula 1 career, or he's going to make a shock move somewhere else on the grid, and I honestly can't think where. Alpine look like they've made progress, but they're still struggling, and they did not score points at this race. Despite, I think they showed decent pace in qualifying, but it just never seemed to materialise in the race. Williams were poor. Albon obviously eventually retired, but he had a whole boatload of issues, which I'm not sure entirely what happened to him at pit stop. Looked like an issue of a tyre change. I'm missing a team. Stake, honestly, I don't think we saw them on camera once. They were just so far down the field, no pace. Not very interesting, apparently, because I do not remember seeing them at all. So I think that's about where Stake are. It's sort of, they are the bottom team at the moment, definitely on results. But Williams and Stake are the only ones who haven't scored points yet, at least. I forgot Daniel Ricciardo. It was okay outside the points again, but at least he finished. I think everyone finished except Albon, so it was at least a very clean race. Some of the support races were a bit messy. Formula 3 especially the sprint race was really bad. But the Formula 1, it was clean. It was entertaining enough. The strategies were interesting. And it was fun watching Lando trying to close down Max at the end. It had its dull moments, this Grand Prix, but it was okay. And I do like Imola. I think it's a fantastic racetrack, and I'm glad it's back on the calendar, because obviously we missed it last year because it flooded. And hopefully we get to see it on the calendar for years and years to come. Next up is a big one on the Formula 1 calendar, the Monaco Grand Prix. Very, very exciting. It's tempting just to say whoever qualifies pole will win the race, and Max has qualified pole for every race this year so far, so Max should easily get this one. I don't know how this track will affect the different cars. Red Bull were quick here last year. Perez is really good on street circuits, so maybe this will be his time to shine. Last year, obviously, we had the weather playing a part as well. Alonso finished second, didn't he? He was running in second. I can't remember something happened with Alonso last year. Monaco offers a very different challenge, at least, so it'll be fun to see what happens at the harbour, knowing, of course, that there won't be a lot of overtaking. And at the moment, the weather's brilliant, so if it's like that as well, the weather won't be a factor. It'll be an interesting one. I think the only really predictions I can suggest is that Hamilton's going to have another difficult year stuck behind someone, not being able to overtake, because that seems to happen to him every year at Monaco, in at least the last few years. And Williams and Sauber will be at the back. They're the only predictions I'm willing to make. Honestly, if Verstappen gets pole, without a mechanical failure or any problems in the pits, he will be impossible to beat at Monaco. And it's down to the other drivers to find that extra few seconds, few tenths of a second in qualifying to beat him. And that keeps it very, very exciting. But that's in a couple of weeks. Next weekend we have the Indy 500, which is another... It's amazing. We have the Indy 500, and then a week later the Monaco Grand Prix. It's only a couple of weeks after that we have the 24 Hours of Le Mans. So we're really in proper historic motorsport season now, with all the big races coming up. There's Formula E mixed in with that as well, and God knows what else. So, thank you very much for watching. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me what you thought of the Imola Grand Prix. Tell me what you think of the motorsport to come. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, as I said. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.